Dynamite on Wednesday was their big beach break show, which did very well in the ratings compared to how a lot of their recent shows have done. It was almost like this mini pay-per-view that they had on Wednesday, headlined by an AEW World Championship match between Kenny Omega and MJF, with the stipulation that if MJF beat Kenny Omega and Omega lost, he could never again challenge for the AEW World title. Just like his friend Hangman Adam Page. Just like the former EVP, former member of the Elite, Cody Rhodes, very early on in his run in AEW. Put that on the line in a match, it must have been the match with Jericho, I believe, and could never again challenge for the AEW World Championship. That was the stipulation. I heard them put this match together for Dynamite last week, and I'm like, beach break? You've got Redemption coming up. What better place for Redemption for Kenny Omega than at a show called Redemption and making people pay to see it? Because even though we saw it earlier this year, that's still a big fucking match, right? That's a pay-per-view main event right there, especially if he's going to win the belt. Kenny Omega against MJF. And they decided to do it on TV for reasons that were confusing to me. Dave Meltzer this week said the match and stipulation was the plan for the Redemption pay-per-view on July 26th in Montreal. The idea was Canada, and the name of the show was Omega getting his last shot after 2 high-profile losses. It was pushed, believed to be by MJF, to get it moved to television. And he says he was not given a reason why, but it doesn't matter where the suggestion came from. That's a major change, and Tony Khan approved it. So it sounds like this may have been an MJF idea. I can only hope that they have something really good cooked up for Redemption then, because Redemption is a brand new pay-per-view. Last check, how many tickets did they move? Somewhere like 5,000 maybe so far for Redemption. I'm sure they'll be a lot closer to 10 by the time they get to the pay-per-view in a few weeks. But it's their first Redemption show. Usually they don't have a pay-per-view between, well, I guess Forbidden Door was at a completely different time last year. But in July, traditionally in the lead up to All In, unless it was All In Texas last year, they don't have a pay-per-view. This is a whole new event they've created. And I would think that ideally you want to have like a major main event for that card. So now Kenny Omega walks into Beach Break on Wednesday. They have this match, which was, again, an excellent main event, much like the one we saw on Raw Monday night. I said back-to-back, 48 hours of each other. These 2 great television main events with 2 big title changes. Kenny Omega beats MJF on Wednesday. He is, for the second time in his career, and the first time in 5 years, a world champion in All Elite Wrestling. And it was this great moment, and again, what a great match. And so now here we are. Beach Break is over. The title has once again changed hands. MJF is without the Triple B, and we are heading into this pay-per-view. And the question I have is, what do you do with MJF at Redemption? And I was thinking about this, and you know who they could put him in the ring with, and you could do a rematch. You could certainly do that, right? You could put him back in there with Kenny Omega. MJF deserves his rematch, and just run the match back again for the 3rd time this year. I think that MJF against Will Ospreay should be a real consideration for that pay-per-view. Not for the title shot at Wembley, because that would just be fucking dumb for Will to put that up on the line. But with the stipulation that if MJF wins, he gets added to make it a 3-way, which he won't be. But I think you tease it. You tease that as a possibility because there's probably a lot of people out there who think, well, that's exactly what's going to happen. He'll probably be worked into the Wembley main event. I got news for you. I don't think he is. I don't think that's happening. But I think that stipulation would make sense, right? But then the thing is, if you do that, if you do MJF and Ospreay at Redemption, you need someone for Kenny Omega on that pay-per-view. Now, I floated a rematch the other night, a rematch from All In last year, where Okada beat Kenny on that show. You could do one more Kenny Omega Kazuchika Okada match, and Kenny beats him this time to keep the championship. So that's one possibility. Kenny defending against Jon Moxley would be another possibility, right? Teasing that maybe Moxley is going to beat Kenny, and that means that Will Ospreay would need to beat Jon Moxley to win the belt at All In. The man that he's been aligned with now for months and months, and the man who last time they wrestled, he lost to. But I don't think Moxley should lose. First of all, I don't think that's happening, but if you do Omega and Moxley, Moxley's got to lose that. I don't think Moxley should lose a match to anybody until he wrestles Ospreay. Then he finally loses. I just don't see him being the one to go in there in the main event at All In. I think they're pretty well locked in now as far as what that All In main event is going to be. I don't think anything's changing that. MJF being added to make it a three-way at this point. Look, I'm disappointed that he is not going to be in the main event because the output for him all year, the work he's been putting in, the matches he's been having, whether it is against Kenny or if it's against Darby or if it's against Hangman or whoever it may be, has been fucking great. And so if anybody deserves to be in the, main attraction on their biggest show of the year, you would think it would be MJF. The idea of adding him to make it a three-way at this point, there's no point. There's no point in even doing so. I'm not sure they would even want to make any more changes to their main event when it seems like they've got Omega against Ospreay pretty well locked in. They really need to start rolling out the promotion for that match. If there was some other strong babyface that people really wanted to see in the main event at Wembley and they got added, let's say a few weeks before the show, that would be one thing. But to go through the trouble of adding their top heel back into the mix, to me, that ship has sailed. With him dropping that belt the way he did on Wednesday, that's it. You got to come up with something else for him to do. And whatever MJF is going to be doing on that show, it will not involve the world title, whether that means a match with Hangman. I'll talk about him in a second because he just came back. A match with Andrade, who he's been beefing with for months. Or if social media is to be believed, they've convinced themselves that it's going to be a match against Mick Foley. But whatever it is, it will not be wrestling for the AEW World Championship. Kyle Fletcher beat Konosuke Takeshita on Wednesday to win the international title because Takeshita is in the G1 Climax this year, which just actually commenced last night. I think he lost to Yota Tsuji, I believe. But he's going to be, and the first show, by the way, was actually at the Now Arena at Hoffman Estates, where All Out is going to be this year. It was here in the States, but he's going to be going to Japan. I don't think we're going to be seeing Takeshita on AEW television for the next month. So you had to get the belt off of him. When he comes back, assuming that he is back in time for London, you could just run it back between these two and maybe even toss Okada in there because he's been in the mix. All three of these men, right, have been interconnected now. That would seem to be the all-in match to me. But I mentioned Hangman. We had the return of Hangman Adam Page on Collision for the first time since losing to MJF in the Texas Death Match back in March, where he can no longer, ever again, challenge for the AEW World title. The announcement of him being on Collision, by the way, was not mentioned on TV. This came out of nowhere from Tony Khan on social media 2 days before the show. That Hangman was going to be on Collision in his home state of Virginia. He comes out last night. He's back to the short-haired look, by the way. We got short-haired Hangman. And he talked about his gardening again. I guess that makes him a domestic short hair. But when he came out, on the lower third, under his name, it said, recently had a vasectomy. Man. Never again able to challenge for the world title and never again able to have kids. If he was going to do that, MJF totally should have added that stipulation to their Texas Death Match. Would have made him an even bigger asshole. The good news about both those things, though, is that they can both be reversed. But he comes out to the ring, he talks about his gardening, which led to him talking about planting seeds, which he literally can't do anymore because he got his tubes tied. But he reiterated that by losing to MJF, he can never again challenge for the AEW World Championship ever again. And even though that was never actually put down on paper, he is a man of his word, and he intends to honor that word, that stipulation. He will never again challenge for the world title, which puts to bed any chance of him getting around it by winning that Casino Gauntlet match next month. I had mentioned that as soon as he lost, actually probably even before that, in the lead up to that match at Revolution, I guess it was. I said, one way to get around this is that he could pop up in the Casino Gauntlet and, he wins a guaranteed world title shot, but it looks like that's out the window. But what he talked about here in this promo was there being other titles to challenge for. And there are many. There are many for him to challenge for. He named the TNT title and Kevin Knight, someone he counted as a trios partner of his at one time. He mentioned Mark Davis as the national champion, who had a hell of a match last night with Speedball Mike Bailey. Next up for Davis, by the way, is Andrade El Idolo, so long as Andrade can get past Jake Doyle on Dynamite this week. And Hangman also mentioned the Continental Champion, Jon Moxley. The same Jon Moxley that he beat to win the world title at All In last year. He said, for 7 years, I have defined myself by the one goal that I held above all others, to chase, to win, and to hold the world championship. But now I am faced with the question, who is Hangman without the world championship? And the honest truth is, I don't know. But we're damn sure going to find out. I'm going to have to find something else to do. And you bet your ass that I will. And he thanked all the fans. Great little babyface promo here. Here's the thing about Hangman and the world title. Hangman, if we assume that Hangman is going to be a long-term member yet of this AEW roster, and he's going to stick around for another 3, 4, 5 years, there is going to come a time where he is going to challenge for the world championship again, whether it is as a heel or whether it is as a babyface, and he is coaxed out of the stipulation. There is no chance, unless Hangman is going to leave this company, which would shock me, honestly, if he was going to leave this company in the next year or two. If we assume that he is, I don't want to say lifer, I hate throwing that word around because there's no such thing in wrestling, but there's no way that he doesn't challenge for that world title again at some point. He has to. But in the meantime, you know what? Yes, you can have him challenge for other championships. His story arc, this entire time that he has been part of this company, has revolved around that world title. And now this forces them, whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing, what it does do is it forces them now to pivot away from the world title and come up with something else for this guy to do, something else that's interesting that he can pursue that isn't just the world championship. Because this evil fucking bastard, MJF, was able to go ahead and convince him that this is what he had to do, and he lost, and MJF can laugh about it he can continue to bring it up every single time, and it just makes MJF into an even bigger dick. But you've got the national title, you've got the international title, you've got the TNT title, you've got the Continental title. I'm sure they'll add 2 more championships in the next couple of years that he can go after. He's already been a trios champion, a tag team champion. It's not like there aren't other things for him to challenge for. The onus is on Tony Khan to, come up with some interesting things, for him to do. Now, Hangman is kind of the main character of AEW. He's a former 2-time world champion. He's a main event level performer for them. Maybe he could help elevate some of these other titles a little bit higher than they are now because he brings some star power to it. I'm not against that idea. I mean, they don't have a choice, obviously, if he's not going to challenge for the world title. What else is he going to do? But the idea that he'll never again challenge for the title, I don't buy it for a second. He will absolutely, at some point, challenge for the AEW World Championship. It just won't be for a very long time.